Ahoy, mateys! It's that time of the year again!
Ahoy, me hearties!
It's Kraken Week! A big collaboration with a bunch of TTRPG YouTubers started by Ginny D and Pointy Hat. So that even includes small creators like me! Yay! So today, I'm going to talk about 5 things from the real-life ocean that you can put inside your game today to make it a little bit spookier, a little bit kookier, and a little bit more fun. Let's start with number 1, and probably the most obvious, water pressure. So when it comes to the ocean and the pressure, this is a very real thing that divers have to deal with on a daily basis. So atmosphere of pressure. Whenever you go into space, you only have to deal with one atmosphere of pressure because there's nothing, as you go upward, there's nothing pushing down on you. But as you go deeper into the ocean, all of that water is pushing down on you at once. And every 10 meters, you go up another atmosphere of pressure. That's what I did with my players in one of our most recent sessions. In one of my most recent sessions, my players were exploring an underwater mine. And to be able to get inside of this mine, they had to wear these giant, deep pressure suits. Kind of think the Big Daddy suits from Bioshock. I kind of based them on them, not gonna lie. So as they are going down into this mine, not only are they having to adjust to that change in water pressure, they are explicitly warned that if their suit breaks, if their suit is compromised in any way, they could quite literally explode. Due to the heavy atmospheres of pressure, they were deep down, almost no light. I think I said they were about a good 30 meters down? Yeah, they were 30 meters down in this sprawling underwater cave. So now not only are they having to worry about any creatures, which they were being attacked by a giant underwater sea monster at the time, they were not only having to worry about the labyrinth in front of them that they could barely see through, they also had to worry about damaging their suits. Because they were going through about 3 or 4 fights during the time they're going through the labyrinth. This was across a couple of sessions. And as it got lower, they were more and more worried. After each battle, they're checking their suits for damage, they're checking their water pressure, they're checking all this stuff. And it builds this tension. As they were explicitly warned, they were told stories by other divers of experiences this happened to. I put that notion into their mind that the water pressure could kill them in an instant. It doesn't matter how strong your character is, what their armor class is. If their suit were to get too damaged, it's over. And that built some... And seeing them get to a location where they couldn't take the suits and had to figure out a way to acclimate to they were like real life searching on their phones what happens if you how to acclimate to pressure quickly. They were ecstatic, and it was probably one of the more fun things I had added to that part of the campaign, where they really just enjoyed themselves with that. And this also gave the party artificer a time to shine. Not only were they acting as an offensive class, at this point in the story, they were also acting as a supportive class, as that character had the moment to shine, to show their mechanical tinkering abilities, where they could fix the suits at the time.
Hello, Editing Bunny here. All of this is to say don't get too lost in the science and the specifics of everything, because this can really make your players frustrated, and it can feel really immersion breaking, especially if you're using a more fantastical, magical world. So try not to get too focused in on the science of everything. Make sure you know your players, know their limits, and know what they're comfortable with. So if you notice that your players are getting too frustrated with a mechanic like this, make sure you adjust that. Add a potion in that helps negate the effects. Biggest thing and most important thing is that you and your players are having fun. Alright, back to the video.
Number 2, a little less scary, Kelp Forest. Admire their beauty. Admire their beautiful grasslands and green. It's so beautiful, isn't it? Something I notice when it comes to a lot of DMs, when it comes to ocean-themed campaigns, is that they primarily set their campaigns in tropical waters. You're gonna see, it's gonna be warm waters, it's gonna be something like the Pacific Ocean, but you have to remember there's so many different climates in not even just different types of oceans, in the oceans themselves there's different climates, there's different environments. And you could really bring that to your campaign, especially when it comes to something like a kelp forest. Not only is it going to be in colder waters, it's going to be a maze. Kelp forests can act the same as a real forest. You have these sprawling tall plants that hide even bigger creatures than you could hide in a real forest. Think about it. So not only in a typical forest, you're just thinking about, oh, bandits hiding behind a tree. You have things that could be swimming in from above you, could be diving in from the top of the water, could be hiding under the sand, could be hiding in the leaves themselves. Kelp Forest offers so much cover. It's this entangled forest of these giant plants that hold so much biodiversity. It could bring something glorious to your campaign. I have used this myself. I run a lot of nautical themed campaigns. Think about wood elves, how they live amongst the trees. You could do the same with tritons. Stop just making your tritons live in coral cities. There's so much more to see. Next big thing is something I don't think a lot of people understand, and that's just how dark it gets in the ocean. And not in the same sense as, oh, it's scary, oh, it's kooky. It is scary, but in the fact that at night, darkness becomes this sludge that consumes you like a tar. It surrounds and encompasses you, just barely held back by powerful lights. You can see this all the time when you see actual footage out on oil rigs or out on ships. Just this nothingness. If you're lucky and the moon's out, you'll have that reflection on the water. But if it's a new moon and there's nothing out there, you're fresh out of luck. Now, man, imagine yourself as a sailor in the medieval ages. Your only light being a lantern powered by oil or a candle that barely shows what's 10, 20 feet in front of you. When you look out, you see nothing. Nothing. It's a cloudy night. There are no stars. It's a new moon. All is darkness. And that can be a detriment to your players. So having your players that fear of just not knowing. Oh, DM, bruh, I have dark vision. Alright? Doesn't change anything, bro. Dark vision is like 20 feet. You can't even see the waves. Dark vision makes you see in darkness as if it were dim light. And in dim light, I still can't. If they're reliant, especially if they're low on spellcasters, if they're reliant on a lantern light and you blow all of it out and they start to feel that boat rocking and shaking and they can hear the waves getting stronger and stronger and stronger as the tension builds. And just, it's so good. It's such a good tension builder and I love to use it. That and fog. But fog is less creepy than spooky ocean darkness. So it can quite literally be anything hiding in those waters. It's really up to you. This was originally supposed to be a video about me talking about cool stuff in the ocean, but it really just turned into me talking about spooky things about the ocean. It's not my fault. The ocean is a little bit scary. A little bit scary, but I quite enjoy it. Something cool and not scary that you can add to your ocean themed campaign. And I was gonna talk about ghost ships and the fact that ships just straight up disappear, but I mean that's something I feel like everyone already puts into their campaign. So I'm gonna talk about biodiversity. A good chunk of the world's biodiversity comes from the oceans, and we can see that in so many different species, mostly micro animals and micro shrimps and biology and yada yada yada. But just the amount of tropical fish alone that there are, I'm gonna start naming some. The unicorn fish, the triggerfish. They have little fangs, little orange fangs. Look at those little guys. The yeti crab, the yellow tang, the blue tang. I used to work in an aquarium. Spikefish. Let's start naming sharks. The bull shark, the wobbegong, the nurse shark, the zebra shark, the tiger shark, the bull shark. Time for cetaceans, the killer whale, the Pacific white-sided dolphin, the bottlenose dolphin, Atlantic and common, the beluga whale, the narwhal. Half of these, you look at them and you're like, oh my god, that already looks like it belongs in some sort of tabletop. And you could probably create a whole tabletop that takes place underwater, and it would perfectly make sense. You can take pretty much any ocean animal and turn it into your own creature. And something that I like to do whenever I'm bored, whenever I have like art block or something, is I like to create a random tropical fish that exists in Wisteria. And that could be by combining two fish or just taking the base of a fish, because a lot of fish kind of have the same funiciform body shape and just coloring it different. Or, you know, if you're trying to make a bigger monster, just take a small fish and make it bigger. Give it magical properties. And even just looking at fish behaviors, there's a fish that makes a whole little home for its wifey. It makes little art patterns in the sand. There's so much you can do with that. Think about Avatar and their penguin seals? Penguin seals. Like, look at that. There's so much you can do with expanding your environment through aquatic environments. And we tend to think when we make our campaigns in any TTRPG, even in Call of Cthulhu, keeping ourselves landlocked can be a detriment that makes our worlds not feel quite as real. Aquatic life is a necessity of life. We are all surrounded by water. Water connects all of us. Most people in the world know how to swim. Or even if you don't know how to swim, most people enjoy a cold bath or putting their feet in the water at the beach. That's something that connects us. This biodiversity and the ocean connects us. And it can connect our campaigns too. Bring up the biodiversity when it comes to your ocean-themed races, your ocean-themed areas. Just try to take more inspiration from the world around you. It's not just coral reefs. It's not just tropical oceans. It's not just beaches. There's the Arctic. There is the Indo-Pacific. There are schools of rays. There's ice flows, there's subarctic ice flows where the belugas live. There's so much more that you can add to make your world feel more real. Because if your characters are traveling from one section of the world in a ship and then they go to the complete other side and they're seeing the same fish, they're seeing the same environments, they're seeing the same habitats, that's gonna start to feel old. And it can make your world seem kind of stale and samey. Just like we want to add diversity to our races, to our landscapes, we also want to add diversity to our oceans. So something really interesting that I've been thinking a lot of as of late, and that is building underwater cities. This is partially players, turn away. Don't listen. If you're my players, this is a message for you. This is not a message for you. Pika, shoo, okay. Are my players gone? And that is because I am building an underwater city of my own. And when it comes to making these underwater cities, a big thing to think about is how biodiverse environments are made in our own ocean. And one of the biggest things to happen in the ocean, especially when it comes to making new habitats and environments, is the death of a whale, or the not alive of a whale. So when a whale passes away, especially larger ones like a blue whale or a sperm whale, their body floats to the bottom of the ocean floor, and almost immediately it becomes nourishment for hundreds and thousands of creatures that live on the ocean floor who spend the next years and years eating what was left of this animal. And even afterward, the bones become home to all of these smaller animals like crabs and eels and a small shrimp. It becomes a home for these creatures. And it reminds me a lot of thinking of Nowhere from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. How this corpse of the god, basically, became this home for all of these outlaws and these people as they mined the inside of it for resources. And that is a really good idea for an underwater city. Can you imagine? And because first of all, the idea of that there was something so big that it has become a metropolis for this underwater civilization, can it just, like, putting that in the mind of your players, like, if there's something that was this big, something that takes up miles and miles of the ocean floor with just its skeleton, it makes you wonder, what was that big that it had a skeleton this size? And you can do so much with that city. It could be a civilization of crustaceans. It could be tritons. It could be the world is your literal oyster at this point. And you can show buildings being built on the side of the bones, or the bones being hollowed out for people to live in to make these skyscrapers. How is it lit up? Is it lit up through a system of old blood vessels? Is it set up through the bones itself? There's so much you can do with this. You can have a whole campaign that takes place in the city. Think of the Owl House. That whole city and civilization was built on the bones of a titan. And now just put that underwater. And there you go. That's a whole new civilization for you to explore and for you to use. And it's really underutilized is those underwater environments. I could legitimately talk about this all day. Can you imagine a rail car on the spine? Because unlike when you have cities built on bones on the top surface that are held down by gravity, pushing down, keeping the skeleton kind of like left. In the water, everything is kind of held up. Even though it is deep underwater with all that pressure, this necessarily doesn't need to be that deep underwater. You know, how do people get around in an underwater environment, especially in a city like this? What type of problems would they face? Would all their cities be named after bones? Like, hey man, I gotta head over to the bruncle. You see, the bruncle is the area between the dorsal fin and the fluke. This is where primarily mussels are able to jump out of the water. This area of mussels can weigh several hundred pounds. There's so much you could do with this. Please implement cool ocean things more, please. Please, I beg of you, add more ocean things. Okay, bye. So if you take away anything from this video or all of the other Kraken Week videos that have come out this week, let it be the beauty and the potential of our oceans. Our ocean defines our culture. It sustains us, and it's home to more life than we can fathom. The companionship of the ocean has touched every living thing, no matter where it is, where it lives, the age. The stories that connect us are ultimately linked to the seas. The ocean drives our weather and provides us with food. Nowhere is as powerful and as unforgiving, but nowhere is quite as beautiful or fascinating. The ocean story is our story, and it can be used to tell many, many more stories. So don't be afraid to visit a beach, a cliffside, or even just an aquarium, and get inspired by our oceans. And thank you for joining me.